If you're a gardener, you have definitely heard this debate. You've got people on one side saying only water in the morning to avoid disease, and then when it's just scorching hot outside, you've got others arguing that watering at night is the only way to beat evaporation. It's one of those questions that just never seems to go away. So you know what? Let's dive in and get a clear answer. This question, this right here, it comes from a real gardener dealing with a blazing hot summer, and it's the exact problem we're going to solve today. This isn't just some theoretical thing. It's super practical, something thousands of us are trying to figure out every single year. So the whole debate really boils down to this. On one side, you have the Save the Water crew. They make a great point. If you water at night when it's cool, more of that precious water actually gets to the roots instead of just vanishing into thin air. But on the other side, you've got the Prevent the Disease camp, and they're waving a red flag, warning that wet leaves sitting in the dark all night is basically rolling out the welcome mat for fungus and pests. So, who's right? All right, let's start with the most common argument against watering at night, and that is the threat of disease. This is the big one. This is the warning you'll hear from pretty much every seasoned gardener out there. And this is what they're talking about. This is black spot on a rose, and it is the bane of rose growers everywhere. It absolutely thrives in the exact conditions you create by watering at night. Damp leaves that just stay wet for hours and hours. I mean, you can see the damage so clearly here. It makes that threat feel very, very real. So here's the key thing to understand. It isn't just the water itself that's the problem. It's how long things stay wet. This quote from the Mississippi State University Extension really hits the nail on the head. A quick rinse during the day is one thing, but a leaf that stays soaking wet all night long, that is a perfect landing pad for disease spores. Let's get really specific with black spot. For this fungus to actually infect a plant, it needs at least 7 hours of continuous moisture on a leaf. 7 hours. That's pretty much a whole summer night, right? And you can see here, the spores get around by splashing water, which is exactly why watering from overhead at night can be such a recipe for disaster. And as if a fungal invasion wasn't bad enough, there's more. That damp, cool environment you're creating is basically a 5-star all-inclusive resort for pests like slugs and earwigs. They love those conditions, and they will happily munch away on your plants all night while you're sound asleep. So, the case is closed, right? Just avoid night watering. Well, hold on a second. Science has actually thrown a really fascinating curveball into this whole debate, and it goes way beyond just fungus and pests. The picture's a little more complex. Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting. All the conventional wisdom focuses on these external threats, the fungus, the slugs. But what if the very act of trying to help a thirsty plant at night could actually mess with its own internal system for managing water? To answer that, we're gonna look at a 2009 study from the journal Photosynthetica. What researchers did was they took these Japanese cedar trees that were already stressed out from dry soil, and for 10 days, they misted the leaves of one group every single night, while the other group was left totally dry. They wanted to see how this little nighttime rescue mission would affect the trees the next day. Now let's look at the actual data. In that top chart, those black dots, those are the trees that got misted every night. By the 10th day, their daily transpiration, which is just a fancy word for the amount of water they release through their leaves, was way higher than the trees that weren't misted. In other words, they were actually using more water. They were becoming less efficient. And here it is, the study's incredible conclusion. By giving these drought-stressed trees a quick and easy recovery every night, the researchers accidentally tricked them. The trees basically forgot they were in a drought. They opened up their pores, their stomata, way more the next day, wasting a ton of precious water. It literally weakened their own natural defense mechanism. Okay, wow, so this is actually pretty complicated. Watering at night can cause disease, it attracts pests, and it might even make your drought-stressed plants less water-wise. But in extreme heat, watering during the day feels like you're just throwing water away. So what this really tells us is that the solution isn't just about when you water, it's all about how you water. The answer comes down to 3 pretty simple steps that can solve almost every problem we've talked about. First, always aim for the soil at the base of the plant. Keep those leaves dry. Second, use mulch. A good 3-inch layer acts like a shield, and it stops those soil-borne fungal spores from splashing up onto your plants. And third, if you can swing it, use drip irrigation or soaker hoses. It's the absolute gold standard for getting water right where it needs to go, to the root. So with all this information in our back pocket, what's the final verdict here? How can you make the right choice for your own garden? Let's put it all together into one simple framework. It really all comes down to your climate. If you live somewhere humid, your biggest enemy is going to be fungal disease. So for you, the best practice is to water in the early morning. That gives the leaves all day to dry out in the sun, and it's still cool enough to cut down on evaporation. But if you live in a dry, arid climate, your main concern is just losing water to the air. In that case, watering late in the evening or super early in the morning is your best bet, as long as you remember to water the soil, not the leaves. So in the end, there isn't one single magic right answer, because no two gardens are exactly the same. The real key takeaway here is to understand the risks, understand the benefits, and then just look at your own specific conditions. Your plants are constantly adapting to their local environment. Maybe it's time our watering habits did the same.